This is Jacob's ladder, where every round going higher and higher. This is Jacob's ladder's matrix, with every round going higher and higher. It's a spiral ladder. What did Jacob see? He saw angels descending and ascending down this ladder. This ladder, he said, the Son of Man was at the top. His higher self was at the top. His Christ self was at the top. The master in the scripture was at the top of this staircase. He saw it as a staircase, is also seen as a ladder. And Jacob is the wrestler, the supplanter, also known as what is called the trickster, who later has his name changed to Israel. So he becomes a son after being a person who fights for sonship, fights for the birthright, fights for this and that, struggles, pulls the heel of his brother Esau even in the womb. This is his ladder, his matrix. The trickster can also be lined up to what is also allegorically called the devil, the trickster, the supplanter, also a trickster, a deceiver. And this doesn't mean that Jacob or the devil is what I'm painting out as an enemy for you. What I'm painting out is what the matrix consists of, which is basically this way of life, this cycle. Is built off tricks and trapdoors and schemes. And even when you're protecting things, you have to be cryptic. So there's layers upon layers of both righteous and harm intended deceptions going on, because the enemy has to be in disguise in order to catch its prey. And then the prey has to be in disguise also, using misdirection and deception in order to throw off its attacker. So you have these layers in Jacob, and what makes every ladder in Jacob's climb a rung or a round, as they say in the hymnals, is that the same things happen over and over again, just in different forms and different scenarios. If you pay attention, everybody's going through Groundhog Day. And it's always the same day. No matter what, is always the same day overall. No matter where you go, no matter what you do, just like Morpheus said in part 4, there's these repeating loops. You run into this person in a different form. You may no longer have a certain person in your life. Then you run into the next person who is like the person that you had in your life before. You can be a person who had a certain career field. You leave that career field because there were certain issues in that career field that you didn't like. But then you go to the next career where those same issues are there, just taking on different faces. And what happens is, if we're not paying attention to the ladder, if we're not paying attention to Jacob's ladder, the ladder that we're on, the ladder that we're in, then we'll end up mistaking the rungs in the ladder for the people who are on the rungs and on the rounds. We'll look at the person as the peg, the person as the rung. We got to climb. We got to get past such and such. We got to get past this group or that group. Those are not the rungs. Those are the people in the rounds between the rungs. If you try to climb onto them, you're going to be doing it wrong and you're going to be a foul. But you have to pay attention to the rungs, pay attention to the cycle, say what is similar, and knowing that the only thing you really have to manipulate is yourself, is your perception of it, is your stance on it. Are you going to be the servant, or are you going to enter what is known as the Lord, the owner, authority? Will you take the authority over each round? Because that's what allows you to climb up higher in the rung. And to throw out a few spoilers, because I used that Matrix 4 example, the Frenchman, Merovingian, was different. He went lower on the rungs. It was still the same rungs. He still met up with Neo and etc. It was still the same scene. He was still fighting while he gave his diatribe with his French and English, giving the commentary on things. That was still happening. That was the same scene as the other prior Matrix movies where he was in a fancy restaurant or in a nightclub. Same scene, just different setting. That was higher on the rung. Now he is lower on the rung. So you have that. Then, for example, Trinity, even though it's later on, she's higher in the rung. She wasn't flying before. It's the same thing. She still met up with Neo, still met up with Morpheus, still met up with the crew, even though people were different and people got, you still end up meeting the core of your circumstances over and over and over again. You have this in the in Ecclesiastes somewhere too, talking about God puts these repeating loops and these cycles over and over. He repeats it all so that mankind cannot figure out what God is doing from one end to the other. However, what is allowed to be figured out, God or not, is that these loops do continue to happen. And once you recognize them, you can change your position in these loops. You can go higher up or lower down. You could end up with the base side of yourself where you're running with people who are more dangerous for you, people who seem to be more rough around the edges, much more untrained, much more wild, much more loose, much more unpredictable. Or you can be a type of person who has a different kind of energy, a more relaxed, a more calm. And you'll run into people that will match you on that level. No matter where you're at, there's always going to be this collection of people. Just like when you look through a microscope at an organism, how those microbes connect and they all start to cluster, people do that automatically. The same thing with animals. It's just a living thing. If you're a living creature, this is just what you do to an extent, automatically. So on Jacob's ladder, you can look at the people and use them to identify where you are in the round, but it's always about the round and where you stand in the round, because that's going to determine your interactions with the people on each rung or each round that you go up Jacob's ladder. Remember, the angels were the ones going up and down, the ones ascending and descending on this ladder. That makes you an angel. That makes me an angel, because we go up or down on these rungs. It'd be the same round, but we go up or down on it. We can either be on the bottom rung, and where there could be just a very beginning stage in the dark, in the cold, isolated, no assistance, no help, no connectivity, no community, no sense of purpose. The very first rung. You keep climbing and seeing yourself through these rounds and improving your mental condition and your outlook, and continuing to let the positive thoughts dominate the negative thoughts until the negative thoughts are no longer there as much. To a great degree, this is going to bring you up higher in the ladder. And it's hard because when you look and you open your eyes, your physical eyes, you see that you're in the same spot anyway, but it doesn't look like we're going up or down or anything. It just looks like human history and life is changing. But we're going up or down in realities, and what reality you go up or down on is a micro reality inside of the macro reality of what happens on the world scale. Even if what you do doesn't change the entire world, it's going to change your entire world. You could be a rich man in the recession. You could be a rich woman in the depression, because the world's ladder is some other ladder. It may not even be Jacob's, or they may not have the same kind of function on Jacob's ladder. According to your climb might be unique, and it may not have anything to do with their climb. Their climb may involve getting a few degrees in a certain subject. Your ladder may require the acquisition of a certain trade because you want to build a business, because you grew up with certain friends that you used to get money with, that you cool with, and y'all just want to build something that can be a legacy for your children. See, that ladder is different. Y'all may have been on the lower ladder together, picking up them things and running around, but you guys realized and elevated high up enough in these rungs where when you guys met up again, you were all on the same level to function again harmoniously, but on a level that you may have perceived as far less destructive. So you master the rungs. It's Jacob's ladder. And the saints, they wanted to point us in the right direction. You know, the mamas of the church, because they used to sing that every round goes higher and higher. They didn't even want us to imagine descending, because at that time we were already too low as a people. We couldn't even talk, we couldn't even imagine or even paint the image of descending even further than we were slaves. And those songs came out of groups of people who were slaves, to be more accurate, because just because of my complexion doesn't necessarily mean I came from slavery either. There were a lot of natives here first, and both my matriarch and patriarch line points to direct nativity here. So on Jacob's ladder, I will always see something or run into people who match my zone, who match my language. And it's just like that for them on the other side of things. This is what makes soul groups, connections, so magical, because the magnetic effect is very, very real. And even if we're not aware of it, we're gonna naturally magnetize and increase and produce more of what we are. So it's not about what we want. It's about what we are. What we are will be connected to, I guess, what we need to have. It's very easy to want something, but it's not harder, but it's more intricate, it's more involving to want to be different, to be the kind of person who owns these things, to start with that desire, to say, I want to be a billionaire before I make a dollar. I want to be a billionaire first in the mind as a person. You're deciding to climb all the way up to the top rung. And once you do that, you realize that you don't have to stay on the lower rung. You'll just climb all the way to the top. But you do have to stay there because, again, I'll add this as a last note, and this might sound a little messed up, but Jacob's ladder is an escalator too. So you can't necessarily stay at one round for too long, because you'll find yourself going down. You can't necessarily be inert destiny-wise, destination-wise, path-wise, purpose-wise. You do have to keep moving. You can't just stay on a certain rung and be like, you know what, I'm happy here. This is a good rung. We good. This is where I made it. I'm on level 5. I'm a level 5 guy all day. Level 5 is going to turn into like level 4, level 3, level 2, within years, could be within months, could be within days. So you always have to continue to be transformed by the renewing of your mind. You have to keep renewing it, like recharging a battery, because it's naturally going to drain no matter what, no matter how strong it is. The mind or the brain, let's say the brain that houses the mind, yes, that will tire and fatigue because it's made of material. The mind is not. So you can always tap in with whatever brains we have. We can always tap in to that infinite resource of non-physicality. So Jacob's ladder is your life. It's my life. Take a look at your life. Take a snapshot of it. See what goes on. See what kind of people you always run into. See what kind of scenarios you always run into, because this is going to tell you where you are on the rungs, whether higher or lower. But one thing you must do if you want life to continue to improve and feel great and everything like that, just keep climbing. You don't have to sprint, but just keep climbing.